doing a classic milk bread recipe. Now I know a lot of you guys have been asking for vegan Asian bakery items, and this is actually the basis. This dough is really the basis for everything, whether you're talking about the pineapple buns or the cocktail buns, and really it's just this super soft and rich bread that's, you know, slightly sweetened and is very reminiscent of a brioche. It's just a lot of the Asian bakery items revolve around this bread. So after we do this recipe, we can actually use it as a base and just do so many more. So I can't wait to show you guys this recipe. So let's head over to the kitchen and let's get started. Okay, so the unique thing about a milk bread recipe is that it actually starts off with a roux. So I have 3 tablespoons and a teaspoon of flour with about a half a cup of water, and I'm just cooking it over medium heat just until it gets like this. So it really only takes about a minute or 2 until you get to this kind of nice soft paste. So you just want to put that aside and let that cool. So during that time, we can start on the rest of the dough. So I have about a 1/4 cup of coconut milk along with some demerara sugar, and I'm just gonna mix that all together up until I think that it's nice and combined and the sugar has melted just a little bit. And then I'm gonna put in 1 package of yeast, which is about 2 1/4 teaspoons of yeast, and all of that goes in. So I'm just making sure that all of that yeast gets nice and submerged and kind of rehydrated. A thing about this though is that because there is a fair amount of sugar and also the coconut milk is thicker, you're not really going to get all of that bubbling that you typically do with just, sugar, water, and yeast. So don't be expecting that too much, but your yeast should be fine. So after you've let the yeast ferment for a couple of minutes and your roux is actually cooled, you can feel free to dump everything into a blender. Now I have it on a dough hook attachment. You guys can certainly do this by hand in a bowl as well. And I'm just mixing it on low speed up until just everything gets combined, because the roux tends to be a little bit thicker and it's harder to add in. So next is my mixture for an egg substitute. It's 2 tablespoons of water, 1 teaspoon of oil, and 2 teaspoons of baking powder. And I find that it's actually a really good egg substitute if you don't have it. And then go in the rest of the coconut milk. So a 1/4 cup goes in there, and you just want to blend it up until just everything is nice and smooth. A good tip for this is you want this dough to be more on the wetter side. So if you do see that the dough starts getting to be a little bit dry, feel free to add in just a couple more tablespoons of coconut oil, okay? So this is actually, next is the flour. So I have a flour and then also a pinch of salt in there. So it's 3 cups of all-purpose flour, and I'm basically adding them in 3 installments. Again, because I want to make sure that this dough does not get over dried. So I'm adding it little by little, and if I do see that it is getting a little bit dry, I will put in some more coconut milk into it. So once the flour is mixed in, I want you guys to see how wet the dough actually is. It's sticking to the sides of the bowl, and you're definitely thinking, oh, this needs more flour, but you have to wait for it. You're going to actually knead it for about 10 minutes on medium heat. And before I continue, I want to show you the texture of it. So this is right at the beginning of that 10 minutes, and you can see it's sticking to my hands, and you can't even stretch it because it's just not, the gluten is not developed yet. It's not at that stage, but definitely this is the texture that you are going to be working with at first, so don't worry about it. So this is right around 10 minutes, and I wanted to show you guys again how the dough has changed. So it's still kind of sticky to my fingers, but this time it stretches out a lot more and it doesn't just break because the gluten has had a chance to kind of develop. So this is kind of the stage that you're at. You can't totally make the clear glass window pane. If you guys make breads, that's sort of just the test that they do. So I'm just going to put it back onto medium speed, and this is going to go for another 10 minutes. But first I'm going to add in 2 tablespoons of earth balance, and that is just going to bring the moisture right back in. But initially it will the dough will kind of look loopy again at first, and it'll look like it has way too much moisture in it, but give it another 10 minutes and it will definitely shape up. So this is after the 10 minutes, and the dough has really gotten a whole lot more elastic, and I'm stretching it right now, and you can see that it doesn't really break. I'm able to stretch the dough pretty thin, and you can kind of almost see through it, and this is actually the texture that we want. So now we're just basically gonna dump everything into a floured surface, and you just wanna knead it by hand for about 1 to 2 minutes so that you can form that nice round dough ball shape, because it's just gonna make it a lot easier when the dough is expanding and fermenting. So you can see this technique of kind of stretching it out and then pushing it back into the center, and it should give you a nice ball of dough like so. So it's a good idea before you put the dough back in to kind of grease the insides, because it's going to make it release a lot easier later. So just put a towel on that, put it into a nice warm place, and then just wait about, I don't know, like 1 to 2 hours up until the ball kind of doubles up in size. So this is really after the 2 hours, and you can see that it's just grown into this like nice big balloon ball. And again, this dough has to be a little bit wet, because I've made it before where when it was too dry, the yeast had a really hard time to expand, because there's a lot of stuff in this dough, a lot of fats and whatnot. So you just want to make sure that it's soft enough for the yeast to actually expand. So depending on what you're making, I'm actually going to be dividing this into 16 little balls, but if you were making different types of breads, you might want to just change up the size. So I'm actually giving this bread away to somebody, so I've taken a 6-inch pan, but it can actually probably make 3 of what I am about to make, and I've greased that pan first. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn these balls, these guys, into little balls, and you don't really have to do as much as I'm doing. I kind of kneaded it a little bit and then rolled it in the palms of my hands, but you can really do it much more casually. In fact, you don't even have to roll it at all. It might give like a nice kind of pretty organic feel. So what I'm going to end up doing is I'm going to place all of the balls with probably like a good 1-inch space in between each one, because they are going to expand one more time. So I'm going to put a towel on top of that, put it into a nice warm place again, and then wait another hour until it about doubles in size again. So you can see how big these balls have gotten after an hour, and I actually went ahead and I brushed it with a solution of earth balance, baking soda, and then a little bit of sugar as well, just to give this bread a little bit of color. So it goes into the oven, 350 degrees for just about 20 minutes. You want to kind of check it. You definitely don't want it to be over dry. So this is how they look like at the end, and feel free to just brush it over with also a little bit of earth balance towards the end if it does look a little bit dry, but it is gorgeous, and it's grown just so big. And these are like rolls that you can definitely have for like breakfast, lunch, and dinner, because it's just a tad sweet, but it goes well with like everything, and it's going to be amazing as a gift. So you can see how they pull apart. It's just like monkey bread, which is super, super fun. And you can see how kind of like flaky and stretchy and soft they are. If you guys have never had milk bread before, I'd say it's somewhat similar to the Hawaiian dinner rolls, only it's a lot softer and it's just like a tad sweeter. And I do think that the dough definitely tastes a lot more rich. So you can see that as I'm ripping it apart, just how soft it is. Word to the warning though is that these guys do dry out really quickly. So if you're not gonna eat them the day of, try to kind of wrap them in plastic wrap, or really just try to eat them the first day, because they are really, really good. Anyways, guys, I hope you enjoyed this recipe. We're definitely going to be making a lot more Chinese bakeries with this base dough. So as usual, if you want to see more recipes like this, remember to hit that like and subscribe button, and I will see you guys again next time. Bye!